Hello, I'm Erin King. I'm making this documentary for the students of Penn State.
Okay, this isn't exactly an untapped subject. In fact, many documentaries and video clips already exist around the country where essentially the remarks are the same time after time.
Hi, we're in Harvard Square looking to interview some students about textbook prices and really the textbook industry as a whole. So do you know how much you spend probably per semester on textbooks?
Per semester, well, I haven't already bought all of my books, but I guess it will be around $3 or $3.50, something like that.
It's a lot of $300 or even more.
Probably about $400 to $600.
So you guys obviously have had textbooks in high school, right? So do you guys think like all the new editions and everything like that, do you think the publishers actually change anything?
No, definitely not.
Honestly, what I think is that they just add like one extra page and change the 3 or 4 pages, add one different picture, and that's it.
Okay.
It's the same thing everywhere in the world, I think.
They want to earn more money.
Classes don't begin at UC Berkeley until next week, but students are back and protesting the increased cost of textbooks. Students demonstrated at Cal and demanded booksellers cut their prices. A recent government report found undergraduate students are spending about $900 a year on books, and the price has risen at twice the level of inflation in the past 10 years. An Emeryville company that sells college textbooks online organized the rally.
So how much did you spend on books this semester?
I just spent $250.
Somewhere around 300.
I spent $700.
And what about used books?
I tried to, but they didn't have any of the ones I wanted to use, so not a luck this time.
Most of the time they don't have enough used books.
Well, why aren't there more?
Textbook companies used to make a living selling, they come out with an edition and then they'd sell it the next year and the year after. But the used market has really developed with the help of the internet. And now textbook companies, sometimes they sell the book the very first semester when it comes out with a new edition, right? But then, everybody turns around, they sell it back to the bookstore, or they sell it halfway across the country through Amazon.com.
Students from UC Berkeley, as well as some other colleges, are upset with the rising cost of college textbooks, and they plan to hold a protest at 10 o'clock this morning at Bancroft and Telegraph Avenues in Berkeley.
Today, we stand here as students of the University of Georgia, as citizens of the state and the nation. We stand here because of one and only reason. We're angry about the outrageous textbook price.
SVSU students know that paying for college certainly isn't easy on the wallet. And this, of course, includes paying for textbooks.
Book prices are notoriously high, really high, but you gotta get them somewhere.
Tanikio Marcus is a freshman here at CSUN. He says textbooks are getting too expensive.
They ridiculous. They expensive. I mean, it's like they don't want us to survive. Like, I don't know. We got like $2 left after one book, and it's like it don't make no sense,
Per semester, how much would you say you typically pay for textbooks?
I probably usually spend about $300 a semester, I would guess, on books. I do a lot of comparison shopping and try and get the best stuff.
And what's the most you paid for one textbook?
I think it's probably like $130, $140 for Spanish 3.
Was it, did you have to buy the book new, or did you have the option of buying it?
Yeah, I had to buy it new. I went to go try and find it used, but I couldn't do it.
Language class is the most expensive book I've had to buy. Really? Okay. It's just because of the codes.
Okay, these two gentlemen are my own personal interviewees at Penn State University. So, you may ask, what do I have to offer to this conversation that's new from anything that's been done before? Well, perhaps at least one perspective, in all fairness to the publishing companies themselves, as well as the textbook authors, that may shed some light on why some textbooks cost as much as they do. To get answers, I looked forward to possibly meeting with a representative from at least one well-known publishing company. Yeah, no such luck. They all declined to interview with me, but I was able to obtain some very valuable insight and relevant information from a university professor at Penn State, as well as a top-level staff person closely associated with the Penn State bookstore.
When I teach 400 students at a time in a lecture section, but in the fall we have 2,700 students taking Chem 110, and all of them would be purchasing the same. We make sure that the sections are the same, so the same textbook, same syllabus, same, homework, all that kind of stuff. So really, when we're choosing a textbook, we're choosing it for the approximately 3,500 to 4,000 students who would be using it through the year in the various times and sections that are where Chem 110 is offered. Now, the students also, we have the same textbook for both Chem 110 and 112. So if they buy the book for Chem 110, they usually can sell it back if they only need it for Chem 110. But if they're going to take Chem 112, the one book is used for 2 semesters. So, and I find the textbook companies are more than willing to work with me on that. I mean, we're in a nice situation with Penn State being as large as it is. They're willing to negotiate almost whatever I want. So that's great.
Dr. Bohan makes a very interesting point. If because of the size of Penn State, it is typically easy for faculty to negotiate with the publishing companies that supply our textbooks, why is it that some department faculty, such as those who work within the Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese language department, don't seem to notice that students are being required to purchase new textbooks that actually haven't been revised or re-edited in a number of years? I'm aware, as are many students, of the textbook codes that come within these Spanish language textbooks from Pearson Prentice Hall Publishing. Unfortunately, what we're really purchasing over and over again, brand new, are textbook codes. This is Mosaicos Spanish 2 for Spanish 2, the second custom edition. I have no idea how long they've been using this book, but I do know that the copyright is 2002 in both books. Now, one of these books was purchased brand new earlier this semester. The other was purchased used earlier this semester. Can you tell which one is the used book and which one is the new book? Yeah, me either. Well, the used book is the one that I purchased from Thrift Books, which it says here on the binding area. This is from Thrift Books. This is a book that I purchased through Barnes & Noble online for $1.99. This book was purchased by a classmate of mine at the time. He went to, actually I believe he had purchased the book used at first, had too many issues with trying to access his homework in Angel, and decided it was best to go on ahead and purchase the new book. So he bought the new book, which is identical to the used book. Also copyrighted in 2002. Oh, well, this is really what he purchased. I paid $1.99 for my book. He paid $62.50 for his book, but what he was really paying for is this textbook code. It's a student access kit, they call it. Required for access to online course materials. So essentially your online course materials are held for ransom until you buy a brand new book. Unnecessarily, considering this book is available at many different outlets for a fraction of the cost at the bookstore. I have engaged in correspondence with Chip Gerfin, the head of the Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese language department at Penn State. I even requested a filmed interview for the purposes of adding his 2 cents to my documentary. Unfortunately, Mr. Gerfin was kind of non-responsive and didn't seem to understand where I was coming from with regard to why students don't have the option of purchasing these books used. Why can't we have the option of selling these books back to the bookstore, which we don't now, and just have the publishing company issue textbook codes for the used books? You know, I mean, insert new textbook codes into used Spanish books or used Italian books or used Portuguese books for all 3 sections, 1, 2, and 3, and beyond, so that the textbook publishing companies can still make money from selling the textbook codes, just at a more reasonable price. I mean, there's really no reason that a textbook code should cost just as much as or more than a book. So why not just charge half the price of the book for the textbook code? At least that would be looking out for students and students' interests, particularly when we're all on a budget and we're trying to spend, what's fair? What's fair about spending $62.50 for a book that's available for $10 or less at many different outlets such as Amazon.com, ThriftBooks.com, and Barnes & Noble for a code? in order to access homework for a class you've already paid for. Also, there's the question of how wasteful this practice is to the environment. I mean, can you imagine needing a brand new book, the same book that's available everywhere used? What types of concerns with regards to textbooks have students approached you or your employees about, if any?
Well, I think there are a couple. Certainly with textbooks, forever it's been price. Whenever people have to buy something that they're sort of forced to buy to be successful, price becomes one of those topics, one of those points of concern. And I think with the rise of multiple options with internet, with options to do things like rental and sometimes online ordering, digital content, there's a lot of confusion and people aren't always sure about what's the best direction for them to take. So there's a lot more conversation now about what are my best options, because there are so many options available to students, both inside our own store, new, used to buy. You can rent new and used. You can buy digital. You can rent digital in some cases. So it's a very complex process for students to go through, and you know what it's like at Book Rush. It's very busy. So being able to make those decisions and then also to look out to other stores or other online, it can be a dizzying experience.
My name is Ezra Ezzy, and I'm a junior major in health policy administration. My struggles with the book system is that I added a few classes this semester that needed a Pearson online activation, which I wasn't able to get the funds in the beginning of the semester, so I ended up having to do a lot of extra work, and it took a toll on my grades this semester as far as teachers working out with me on how I could compensate for the online work.
You can see many students would love to see these policies with these publishing companies re-examined.
I ended up having to take out extra loans for the books, so this semester I'm just working on just trying to recover my first 3 weeks of online work to recover my grades.
I'm a senior. Congress took an important step to address the problem of high textbook costs by passing a set of provisions in the Higher Education Opportunity Act of 2008. The new laws, which went into effect on July 1st, 2010, increased transparency about prices and some of the worst publisher practices. HEOA, Higher Education Opportunity Act, and its latest provisions regarding textbook ordering transparency that was passed as part of federal law in July of 2010?
Oh, more than aware. We're very much aware of that, and we believe that over the last couple of years we've been very much a part of the compliance process for the institution. So if you would go to register for classes and you want to see view contents, view materials, all of the book list information, all the course information that we're aware of is posted usually within 24 hours of us receiving it. So that's part of that compliance process. And I've had the opportunity, not only is it a federal legislation, but now states are getting involved, and Pennsylvania is one of those states. And the state Higher Ed Board of Education actually put together a committee of which I participated.
The provision that requires publishers to offer textbooks and supplemental materials that they often will sell as bundled packages, since that provision requires that they offer those bundled items separately, is that something that's been adhered to here?
That has very much been adhered to. Sometimes we've had some faculty not always understanding why. But we started to unbundle it before it was even required. not simply to be good people, but our customers were telling us. You know, because faculty say, well, but I want them to use the bundle. And I'm saying, well, I understand that, but I'm just telling you that's not what they're buying. We're hearing they're buying from their friends just the book and surviving. So that's why we started to offer the unbundled pieces, and then it really became part of the conversation and legislative process. So our vendors have been very cooperative with that.
Naturally, I'm curious about some of those other provisions, whether or not they're being adhered to here at Penn State and at other schools across the country as well. Are you aware of the HEOA Higher Education Opportunity Act and its latest provisions regarding textbook ordering transparency, which was passed into federal law in 2010, July?
I think I am. We pretty much have to let the bookstore know what textbook we're using before students register, so they can figure out the cost associated with it.
And that's one of the provisions, and there's another that requires textbook publishers to disclose their prices up front, and also one that requires them to offer bundled packages separately, offer each item individually, as well as in bundles.
Well, and I think the thing is I've never had trouble with the textbook publishers telling us differently. They always are willing to tell us how much they charge. That's never been a problem.
What the price information disclosure says is that publishers are required to include pricing information with any information they provide to faculty about a textbook. Pricing information includes the following 4 items: wholesale price and publisher's retail price if available, copyright dates for the past 3 editions if applicable, list of substantial changes between the current edition and the previous edition, and list of available alternate formats and their prices. Textbook prices have gotten out of control because the textbook market doesn't function like a normal market. The people who choose textbooks, the faculty, are not the same people who buy them, the students, and therefore price plays a lesser role in purchasing decisions.
Every 3 years the publisher comes out with a new edition, so we kind of have to, we just can't get enough used books for our population, so we have to move to new editions pretty regularly. That's all, pretty much all we can do, because the publishers just do every 3 years. They just update their editions. And they stop making the old edition. So even if you said, I like this one, there's nothing wrong with it, I want to use it forever, they will not continue to provide it forever. And I'm sure that's one of their ways of making sure they keep making money. So,
and I imagine the revisions are significant enough to warrant being issuing a new edition.
Well, it all depends. Some years they're more than others, and different people have different opinions on that. But we're not going to go there. I mean, it's like I said. My problem is I can't. I think students do need a reliable textbook. And it does require a lot of time and effort on a lot of people's parts to produce a good enough quality textbook that will both be appealing to students and will have things that are correct. I mean, getting figures that are nice, getting, current, nice, correct. I mean, this is not as trivial as people might think. And so I know they look at these dollar amounts and go, wow, that's really, really expensive. And it's like, well, it is, but when you start looking at the number of people that have to work on it to make it right, to get it out quickly, correctly, all the things that go into a Gen Chem textbook, and I know students, there's probably classes they take where they never, ever, ever use the book, but I have a hard time believing Gen Chem is one of them. Like I said, they may not read it word for word, cover to cover, but I think they use the book because you've got to go back. This is the material. You've got to look at it again and again, and you've got to think about it, and you need to see it in different ways. And I think the figures help, that different kinds of problems help. So I think it's an important tool that if students really took time to think about it, they would realize that it was an important tool and it was valuable. But it's pretty easy to complain about the cost and all those other things without giving thought to what they use and why they use it.
It is certainly understandable that when a great deal of research, illustration, formulas, and fact gathering have gone into the production of a textbook, such books should cost more than, say, $40. However, do they really need to cost $400? One of the many students who signed my petition against overcharging for customized textbooks
informed me that she herself had paid $500 for a forensics textbook required for criminal justice. Unfortunately, the bookstore was not allowed to buy the book back from the student, as a quote-unquote new edition was scheduled to be released the following year.
The release of new editions can often make matters even worse for students.
Some books are really bad about making very, very small changes to the textbook and just calling it a new edition.
Although in some fields, professors will tell you that it's not essential to pay top dollar for a brand new edition.
A lot of times there is no overall change within these textbooks between one edition and another, and so I tell them that if they're willing to manage a few changes in page numbers and so forth, that an older edition is just fine.
So here is the 4th edition of the textbook I'm using, okay? But I'm actually not going to use that this semester. I'm going to use the 3rd edition. Why? Because it's the same book. You go through this, and in virtually every chapter the words are the same. But in what way are they different? The pictures are the same. They did a very good job of changing all the pictures. So, you know, here we see a picture of an old frumpy economist with some sort of old kind of fashioned blackboard. Well, let's get a close-up on that. Okay, there's a picture of the cow, but he's pretty frumpy. What they've done, they've updated this textbook by having an economist up there with PowerPoint and a female, etc. They still got the picture of the cow. And what about the difference in price? This book, new, $115 as a new book. This book, now you can get it pretty cheap. You can get it at the bookstore, used copy for $50-some, and you can maybe find copies on the internet for $25 or even less. But I think there's a lot of things that universities can do, like the econ departments. They can start looking around and start saying, why would anybody assign this book when it's literally the same book? That's the kind of stuff, the kind of decision making that can save money for our students. We have responsibility to do that as faculty.
Clearly, there are a number of faculty out there who do care about the students, who do make the effort to work with the publishing companies to keep those prices reasonable, while other faculty, for whatever reason, simply do not. And there are those of us who sincerely appreciate the dedication of those faculty and staff who work tirelessly on our behalf to make our financial responsibilities a little less burdensome. Hey, when it comes to college costs as a whole these days, we students need all the help we can get.